Hey guys, so new Synology models with actual specs have leaked. And rather than jumping to create a video, I wanted to sit on it so that I could provide input from a non-emotion based standpoint. So in this video, I'm going to give you some of the facts, and then at the end, I'll give you my opinion on everything. So first, none of this is confirmed. These are all leaks. It is not a guarantee that this will be the final products. Next, we're going to be ignoring anything that came with an Intel J4125 processor, in specific the DS225 Plus, 425 Plus, and DS625 Slim. We're going to be ignoring those because, in my opinion, you should not be buying an end-of-life discontinued processor from 6+ years ago in 2025. So first, we're going to look at the positives or the biggest upgrades of the device, then we'll look at some of the downsides. So the biggest upgrades are for the DS925 Plus and the DS1525 Plus. Those devices are expected to come with the V1500B processor, which is currently in the DS1821 Plus and 1621 Plus. It is a great processor. It's about 25 to 30% faster from a performance perspective than the current R1600 processor in those devices, and overall, it is a good upgrade. Next is going to be the networking. All the devices in some capacity will have 2.5 gigabit NICs. The DS925 Plus and 1525 Plus are expected to have two 2.5 gigabit NICs, same with the 1825 Plus. The DS725 Plus is expected to have one 2.5 gigabit NIC and one 1 gigabit NIC. But overall, it has been expected. It's something they've needed to do. And finally, you will have 2.5 gigabit NICs. Now, other than that, that's about it. Quite honestly, very incremental upgrades, and outside of the DS925 Plus and 1525 Plus from a hardware perspective, plus the networking changes, nothing else has changed, but some things are rumored to have been removed. In specific, the 10 gigabit NIC for the DS1525, DS925, and 725. It's expected to be removed if the leaks are true. So that would mean no upgraded networking. Whatever comes on the device is what you will have. Now, I'll tell you why later that could have been, but I can't come up with a single reason why that would be true. So my hope is that that was just omitted from the slides that were leaked, and it will still exist. So with all of that in mind, I think it's important to highlight what Synology's goal is with these devices. Synology treats these devices as an appliance. So when we look at them as a server. We look at them as being capable of so much. We want to run our Docker containers on it. We want it to be a media server for our home. We want it to run all of our backups, etc. Synology, while the operating system is capable of all of that, does not view these devices that way. Synology views these devices as an appliance. So start thinking of like a microwave or a dishwasher. You don't care about the components, you care about the functionality. And the functionality is it's either going to microwave your food or it's going to clean your dishes. And if it does that, it succeeds. And if it doesn't do that, then you got a problem. Synology views their NAS devices, in my opinion, as an appliance. And when you start to look at it from that perspective, you start to understand why they're using the components that they're using. I'm not saying I agree with it, and we'll talk about my opinion on it in a little bit, but I think if you look at it from that angle, you can understand why they want to support a few specific processors, and they'll be able to maintain the lifespan of them if they handle things that way. So that's, I think, the best way to look at a Synology NAS. It is not a home server, it's an appliance. And if it's purely being used as an appliance, it's very capable from that narrow viewpoint. So with that out of the way, I will give you my opinion. If the rumors are true and the DS7, 9, and 15 series does not have a 10 gigabit NIC or a 10 gigabit upgrade option, it is a huge miss. Mainly because 10 gigabit networking has come down so much in costs that is a reasonable option for consumers today. 4 to 5 years ago, not so much. Today, definitely. There are access points that are coming with 10 gigabit uplink ports. If you are not competing in that area, there are a lot of people that will not even consider this. And I can tell you for myself, if the DS925 Plus, which is what I planned on upgrading to after changing a lot in my home lab, If that device does not come with a 10 gigabit NIC, it is not something I can use. So that would mean that I have to upgrade to the 18 series, but the 18 series with all the changes I've made is too big at this point. So the best option, if that's true for me, would actually be the DS923 Plus, which is ironic because I could have been using it for 2 or 3 years at this point, but I digress. I think it also would add an artificial barrier to these devices. So if you look at something like a UNAS Pro from Ubiquiti, it is purely a user-friendly NAS device. That's all it is designed to be. They have a 10 gigabit port on that. However, you can't saturate it, so why would they add it? I appreciate that they added it because they're allowing you to max out the performance of that device. So there are people that aren't happy that it can't fully saturate the 10 gigabit NIC that comes with it. But if you look at it from the opposite angle and you look at it from the price point, the hardware that it has, meaning the total bays, the networking that it has, if you look at it purely from that angle, Ubiquiti is allowing you to max out the performance of that device. If this is true, you will be artificially limited and you will not be able to max out the performance of this device. And to be clear, with how robust Synology DSM is, if you added NVMe cache in there, any of those devices, meaning the 2, 4, or 5 bay models, would be able to fully saturate a 10 gigabit NIC. So if they don't have that, that is a huge, huge, huge miss in my opinion. Next would be the processors. The only upgrade that I'm really not fully in line with is the DS1825 Plus, and I'm assuming the DS1625 Plus, which wasn't on that list, but I don't think you can look at a device that came out 4 years ago and have the exact same components unless there's a tremendous price drop. It is very, very difficult to look at that and be happy. I'm not saying the device is not capable. I'm not saying it won't do exactly what you need. I'm just purely looking at it and saying 4 years ago and today, the only difference is we changed 4 1 gigabit NICs to 2 2.5 gigabit NICs, which in total will give you 1 gigabit more of total throughput. I can't look at that and be happy. Doesn't mean it's not going to do what you need. On a personal level, that's my opinion. The DS9 and 15 series processor upgrades are fine and actually good in my opinion. They're using architecture that they've used for years. There will be a level of reliability there, which is I think what they're going for. And overall, I'm happy with those upgrades. The DS7 series, I can't fully wrap my head around that one only because it's the exact same thing. It has 1 2.5 gigabit NIC instead of 2 1 gigabit NICs, but I don't know how many people in that form factor bought the 10 gigabit upgrade port. So I don't think I can fault them for removing it. I don't know how popular it was. They know better than we do. So that one, dropping the 10 gigabit NIC doesn't bother me as much as the 9 and the 15. But to me, the 9 and the 15 is a huge loss if it doesn't have the 10 gigabit NIC. So here's how I think we need to start treating Synology devices. We need to start treating it for what they are. They are a NAS device, and they have a few great applications. I've been using TrueNAS Scale. I've been using Unraid. I've tried TerraMaster's operating system. I've tried Ugreen's. I've tried QNAPs. None of them are as user-friendly as Synology DSM. And also at the same time, none of them have applications like Synology Drive, Active Backup for Business, even something like Hyper Backup. It is very, very hard to replace those applications. So we need to start looking at this for what it is. Synology has certain applications like Docker that are using outdated end-of-life versions. It's the same thing with their Linux kernel. It's very, very old in comparison to what's new. So we have to stop looking at these devices as servers. I think 4 or 5 years ago, you could have looked at them that way. I don't think you can anymore. I think if you want a Synology device, you have to expect, if you want to do more performant things, you need to buy a purpose-built device. Even something like a mini PC, that's $100, $150 to pair with the NAS. And you have to start looking at the Synology as a NAS device because I think from Synology's perspective, they are treating it as it is that appliance. And we as consumers are expecting more from it because of how much it is capable of. Unfortunately, with the hardware components, while it's capable of that stuff, that doesn't mean that that's what you should be using it for. That's my biggest takeaway if any of this is true. Stop treating it like a server, start treating it like an appliance, and overall, the hardware will work well as an appliance, but will not work well as a server. Now, does it upset me? To an extent, yes, because Synology DSM is capable of so much, and it's being limited by the hardware. So for at least the 925 and 1525 plus, you could look at it and say, well, there's an actual upgrade there. The performance will be better. For just about everything else, there is no performance increase. The networking performance increase is great, but from a day-to-day usage perspective as a server, again, no increase. So with that out of the way, let's look at the clear winners in this. The clear winners are existing DS7, 16, 18, and possibly even 9 and 15 users if the 10 gigabit NIC was important to you. A lot of these devices are using the exact same components. So if you are an existing user, for 3 to 4 years, you've been using components that are in the latest model. And for you, that's a huge win. That also means that if you were an 1821 plus possible buyer and you've been waiting for the next model, unfortunately, you're probably losing out in this area because you could have just bought that 1821 plus 2, 3, 4 years ago, gotten usage out of it, and used, for the most part, the exact same components as the latest model is being released with. Which then leads me to the final point, and it's going to be a quick one. If Synology is releasing a device with components that were released 3 to 5 years ago, did the users that have those devices just extend the lifetime of those devices from a support perspective? So I'd say from a maximum perspective, you as a consumer can expect a device like this to be supported for 8 to 10 years. That's maximum. If that's the case, and the 1525 plus being released today has the exact same components as the 1821 plus, 8 to 10 years from then would have been somewhere between 2029 and 2031. So if you have an 1825 plus and it's 8 to 10 years, you're looking at 2033 to 2035. Will that model from 2021 actually be supported in 2035? I don't know. I don't think so. So then what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that would be that you bought a device expecting 8 to 10 years of support and it's dropped after 4 to 5 years of support, because that would align more with the 1821. Nothing that anybody out there will know. This is purely a hypothetical, but it's at least something to be aware of. So overall, for me, I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I didn't expect this level of incremental upgrade, but I think if you look at it from their angle, at least you can understand it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but at least you can understand it. So we'll see when these devices come out. I'm hoping to get my hands on them, but we'll see when they come out if these are in fact the final specs. But I hope you got some value out of this. If you have any questions or even comments, I'd like to know what you guys think. Please leave those in the comments. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.